Well, welcome to Biltmore Soundscape Studio. Biltmore Soundscape Studio was started not too many months ago. It was just early last year. And we have 9 studios here to tell stories that are fun, great, interesting, and a bit scary. Today, we have the pleasure of having Matt Thomas.
Yeah.
Welcome, Matt.
Well,
Matt wrote Interceptors. This is a book not for the faint of heart. But then again, it takes a lot to maybe get the attention of the public and to bring them to bring them current to the issues that are all around us.
Yep.
Well, Matt, welcome
Thank you
to this podcast.
Thanks for having me.
I have a particularly fond feeling for this area. I was a prosecutor for a short period of time, from 74 to 82, actually 78. But I was in criminal law later. And I also have a fondness for the Pinal County Sheriff's Department, with whom I had spent some very good quality time. So I guess tells us that that's where you hail from.
Yeah.
Pinal County Sheriff's, right?
Right. Worked for the sheriff's office for 30
tell me a little
years.
bit about your story, how you came to get there.
Well, it was a long road. So I grew up in Phoenix, grew up down at South Mountain Avenue in Central area, and all the way through the start of high school. And then shortly after high school, my mom got married, and my mom and new stepdad moved us out to Queen Creek, and we were on the Pinal County side of Queen Creek, so moved out to Pinal County, finished out high school there, and after high school, one of the girls that I met in high school, not my high school sweetheart, but a girl that I met in high school, we started dating. And at the ripe old age of 19, I found out I was going to be a dad. And so I had to figure it out very quickly.
Oh, boy.
Right. So at 19, started applying to different agencies. I knew I wanted to serve in some capacity. I was looking at military or law enforcement, and started applying to several different agencies. And Pinal County was the first to call me. And so at 20 years old, I went to work for Pinal County and stayed there for 32 years. And I was there through May of 25, where I retired from the sheriff's office and took a chief police job for a small local agency a couple days later, actually, after I retired. So I retired on a Friday, started on a Monday, and I've been with that police department since, and got a few more years in me.
You know, as I said, I have some familiarity with the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. And as I said, I worked with one of the detectives, Dave Harrington, there years ago.
Right.
Dave, if you're alive and well, hey. But that's a long time to be with one singular law enforcement agency. That's not uncommon for men and women to bounce around a little bit in law enforcement.
Yeah.
What kept you there?
I was having fun, man. Honestly, when I got into it, I moved around every 3 or 4 years to different positions in the sheriff's office, and so kept my interest up, and I did a lot of different assignments, and so I loved that area. I loved my sheriff's office, and loved what I was doing. And there were times where, I looked at other agencies because there's always maybe money or better equipment or, whatever it is that you see as a shiny object that can distract you. But I held firm there because I really loved that sheriff's office. I loved the county itself, the people, everything. And so, they kept me there because I felt at home there.
Well, and that begs the question for me. A person doesn't wake up in the morning and say, I want to go in law enforcement. I want to go to Iran. I want to go to,
Right.
overseas and protect this country. What was the underlying feelings, the experiences? What led you to want to go into law enforcement at age 19 and 20?
Well, I mean, part of the driving factor was that I knew that I wanted to get a government job, right? That was going to be a steady paycheck, take care of my family. I wasn't going to get rich doing it, but we would be all right. It was kind of a recession-proof thing. But the service side of me, my grandparents were both World War II vets, And I watched my grandfather after, when I was around my grandfather as a youngster, watched him with some of his buddies from the war and the interaction, the camaraderie. And then being in a kind of a gang-infested neighborhood, I interacted with the police quite a bit. Not because I was a bad kid, just because they were always in our neighborhood, right? There was always something going on. And so interacted with cops quite a bit. And I think Phoenix cops, when I was younger, kind of set that in for me as well, because my interactions with them were always good, even if it was a negative circumstance. They were always good, and kind of looked up to them. And they would be in our neighborhood. We would BS with them from time to time. Sometimes they would have us down on our knees, ankles crossed, hands behind our heads. Sometimes they'd just stop by and BS with us. So I think all of that kind of set me on the path to where I looked at that career as a noble career, and either military or law enforcement, like I said, was kind of where I was focused, and went into law enforcement and just stayed there. It was everything I expected. It was more than I expected at times, and I just had a blessed career, and kept me. I stayed alive for one. That was a good thing, and not only that, but I was able to just have some cool jobs and do some cool stuff.
So there was no interaction that would later prevent you from applying to law enforcement.
No. There was nothing that kept me out of law enforcement.
That's great.
As a youngster, I ducked and dodged all that stuff, and then my mom had a piece to do with that. Right, she was a single mom for a while, very strict, and very much played a mom and dad role with a lot of input.
In terms of who you are, the kind of person you are, I know you wrote this book, Interceptors, and we're going to get to it in a little bit. But let's talk about Matt Thomas, the human being, the man.
Right.
What at your core is important to you, Matt? What drives you as a human being, as a person, as a father, as a spouse, and as law enforcement, but as a human being?
Well, I mean, that's changed over the years, but like right now, if we took a snapshot of this moment in my life, the driving factor is my faith. My faith is the core of my belief, and so everything I do, I try to do based on that. One of my core beliefs, whether at home or at work, is that we should leave things better than when we got them, right? And so I try to live that way. I try to treat people as I would want them to treat me or my family. I try to pour into people and help where I can. And I think so much so sometimes you discount yourself, right? And you give to others and you stop worrying about yourself. But yeah, I think as I went through life, that I was always a person that wanted to help other people, right? And I think that's a big part of getting into this career, is because you understand you're going to be doing a lot of that. But as I went through life in my 20s and 30s and 40s in this career and life, you see, all the negativity in the world, you see all the bad in the world, and sometimes you feel like you're up against a wall, you're not going to win, all that stuff. But I always tried to just have a positive mindset, and I always had an understanding that the good guys win in the end, so I think that was always a driving force.
Of course, that's the goal, isn't it?
Right.
And I don't think we have any doubt what your faith is. You're wearing that cross
Yep.
out there proudly and for all to see.
Yep.
Is that something you do on a regular basis? You wear your...
Yeah, I do, and I mean, I've got Calvary.
I see the Calvary on your bicep.
Front and center on my bicep. I am not shy about my faith. And it's not designed for me to throw it in people's faces. It's just designed for me to say this is what I believe, and so because I think as a Christian, that's what we're supposed to do. We are supposed to live a life and treat others in a certain way. And when people are looking at me and saying, man, why are you like that? That they will see why I am like that, because I have Christian beliefs, and that's the way I treat people.
Is this a belief and a philosophy that you acquired when you were very young, or did it come to you over time?
So my grandmother and mother were devout Catholics, and so I think it was instilled in me early on. And I watched my mom. You know, we grew up in a rough area, and my mom was a single mom, didn't have a lot. She didn't want to take I remember my grandparents always trying to help her, and she wanted to make it on her own, right? So she would always not take the help and try to just push through on her own. And I remember her, she was very good at just teaching me how to treat people. And I remember very distinctly one time we walked out of the church, actually, and there was a guy there, a homeless guy, and he walked up and he says, "Could I have some money for a meal?" Right? And we didn't have a lot of money then. We were living in government subsidized housing, and we were getting government food on occasion. And so my mom said, "Well, yeah, I will buy you something to eat." And she says, "But you're going to go with me, and we're going to go buy it, and you'll sit down with us and eat." And he was like, "Okay." And so she says, "Meet me over at the coffee shop there, and we'll be there in just a minute." So we go over to the coffee shop, and as we go over, my mom proceeds to tell me, like, "Hey, some of these people only want money because they want to further a habit that they have, a drug habit, something like that." And she says, "This is a sure way for me to know that he's being honest, and if he truly does want something to eat, then we're going to get him something to eat." And I was like, "Okay." And then when we get over there, she says, "You know, we're going to sit down and have him eat with us because it kind of shows him that it gives him some dignity back, right? He doesn't look like we look. And for him to be able to sit with normal people, have a meal, and just be normal and be seen is a big deal for him." So she, at a young age, instilled a lot of that in me just by showing me, right, how she treated others. And so I think, I think at that age, she kind of set it in stone. This is how you treat your fellow human. Yeah.
If you didn't know it then, do you know now how extraordinary that is, what your mother did?
Oh, yeah.
And how brave?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, I knew it was something then, but you're a kid, but I knew it wasn't normal, right? And I don't know that I necessarily agreed with it at the time. I'm like, "Wow, I don't know. We don't even know this guy."
I would
right?
be surprised if you did agree with it.
So I think, like I said, that story, I remember it very vividly. I can even remember the smell sometimes, right? And so it obviously stuck with me through life. And so I do think that I had an understanding as I became an adult. And then especially as I had kids and tried to do some of the same stuff, how profound of a moment that was. Yeah.
Do you know how old world that is? I have renewed my relationship with a family, and my maternal grandmother during the Depression had a big house, and she too didn't have a husband at the time. They were estranged, but she had opened that house to essentially the homeless men of the time. I don't know so much about the women. I didn't hear much about that story because they were mostly homeless men that she encountered. And they were literally come to the house, eat. She had some rooms for them too. They would come and go.
Yeah.
And my aunt would tell me these stories that were just absolutely amazing
Right.
about her mother would do this. And that's pretty old world.
Right.
It really is.
Yeah.
Especially given the world today, right?
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Do you have siblings? You have brothers and sisters?
I don't. I am an only child. I have a stepbrother, but really don't know him. He wasn't around much. When my mom and my stepdad got married, he was living with his mom in a different area. So, I would see him every few years. And I mean, that's kind of remained the same. I'll see him every maybe once a year now, and didn't really know him. But as for blood relatives, no siblings. I was an only child, and Yeah, it was cool and sucked, I guess. I guess I don't know if it sucked or not because I didn't have brothers and sisters, but
I was an only child too, and still am.
yeah. And so, growing up by yourself, but I think, I had a lot of friends in the neighborhood, especially that kind of become your brothers. So, yeah.
Given how you felt in your upbringing, how did you select your friends? Was religion a basis, a factor in how you selected your friends? I mean, how did you select your friends, given how you felt and how your mother was bringing you up?
Well, I don't. I feel like my friends were selected for me. When you grow up in the neighborhood, the neighborhood I grew up in had boundaries that nobody really, the outside world couldn't see them, but we understood them, right? Certain roads you can't go past because that's a different neighborhood. Certain areas you don't go into, all that stuff. And so I think, as kids growing up, you would just, and this is back in the 70s and 80s when kids would just go outside to play, right? So you'd go outside to play in your neighborhood and a couple of streets would get together to play football in the street or baseball in the street or soccer. And then that becomes your friend group. And then out of that group of kids you're playing with, you kind of click with certain people and those become the friends you hang out. And that's really how it happened. Just kids in the neighborhood. And we all go to school together. And there was about 4 or 5 guys that lived within a block of my house that just kind of hung out with on a normal basis.
That's a great segue for me. You've hit right on.
Perfect.
But my next question, a series of questions, is going to be how did you come to know JC? And I'm not talking about Jesus Christ. You know who I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know.
I'm talking about Jesus.
Yeah.
Cesar.
Yeah.
Almanza.
So JC and I did not
Actually,
know each other.
Julio, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's Julio Cesar. Yeah.
But we didn't know each other growing up, right? Because he grew up in Chicago. I grew up out here in Phoenix, but a very similar story, right? When JC and I sat down and talked for the first time face to face, we were both kind of just blown away. Like, man, it's very, very similar, and it's crazy how different the paths are as you grow up. And I've had that happen with friends, and JC and I talked about that. But essentially, we got to know each other through social media, man, which has kind of been a cool thing. Because I know social media can be so many bad things, right? But I think the good thing that comes out of that is it allows you to connect with people. So JC and I started chatting on social media, and I kind of saw who he was and what he was doing, what he was about, and we would talk here and there and share videos sometimes with each other and stuff, and got to talking and got to know each other over social media a little bit. And then that's how we led to, hey man, come down to the studio and let me show you around and let's talk face to face. So I came down and met with him and got to know him a little bit better. And it's crazy. And again, just caring about the human on the other side of me, it's not typical for a cop who spent a good part of his career fighting cartels to now sit down with a guy who was in the cartel and doing that stuff. That's not a typical thing, but I think to get back to the original point of faith, that's the bond that breaks through all that other stuff, right? So Julio is a brother in Christ, and that bond is way beyond what this world can offer, right? So what he's done as he grew up, crimes he committed, stuff that he did that was opposite of what I was doing, that's not my place to judge, right? He did his time for the stuff he did wrong. Sure. He is a free person now, and he is out doing good. And again, he's a brother in Christ. And so I think when I look at that, I can not focus on the other stuff. I can just focus that this is another man that goes through the same struggles that I go through and believes in a lot of the same things that I believe in now. And that kind of brought us together.
Now, you mentioned you had an introduction to him through the social media process. when you actually saw him face to face,
Yeah.
what were your thoughts, your impressions? Did it shock you? Was he the man who you had seen and envisioned through your social media contacts?
I think he was a little more chill than I anticipated, because because I think social media, right? It's easy to see, you're getting snapshots, and I know he's a hustler and he's always on and he's moving and shaking and doing a lot of stuff. But when we met face to face, he was just calm and chill, and so that was cool.
Well, you met him here.
Yeah,
yeah. This is his hood.
Right.
And by the way, I will take some of the credit for that chill.
Yeah. Oh, good
Hey,
for you.
Don't deny it. You know it's true.
No, but I mean, you know, I had seen him. I saw the stuff he was doing. I knew his history, so I kind of knew what to expect, what to anticipate. But again, the super mellow, super chill, kind of just low key. And I think comparatively to his history, that was the opposite, right? Because he was a big boss running stuff.
Yeah. Are you aware of his wrong to strong foundation? And maybe I should put it this way: his wrong to strong philosophy, which he's developed over the many years. I think perhaps it was born in prison, and then once he came out, he gave it birth, and then flesh, and then in body, and he's got a wrong to strong foundation, but it's a wrong to strong philosophy. Are you familiar with what he has and what he's putting out there?
A little bit, yeah, because I pay attention to what he's doing, following him and some of the stuff he's doing, and I know that he's trying to work to help others, right, that have gone down the wrong path and help them get back on the right path and help prevent some of these youngsters, because that's one of the things that we talked about, how easy it is to get wrapped up in the bad side of the game, and helping to keep the youngsters out of that and helping to get them to understand that while it looks like a very attractive lifestyle on one hand, because the fast women, the fast money, all that stuff, that looks real attractive, but how empty that life is, right? And JC can speak directly to that. And so, yeah, I've seen a lot of that work that he's done.
Yeah. It's very short term, and it is glamorous. And TVs and all the cinematic and film noir and Hollywood, they glamorize it quite a bit, even when they claim they're just trying to show the truth, the seedy side of it.
Right.
In truth, it's pretty glamorized, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, they don't show, if they wanted to show the truth, it would be more like a documentary, and it would show all the violence and all the vileness, and yeah.
Before we get into some other issues and maybe wrap it up a little, I want to talk about your book.
Yeah.
So throughout all of this, you found time to write The Interceptor. All right. I will tell you, I glanced at it the other day because I just got it about a week and a half ago.
Right.
It's great reading because it's an easy read. The font is terrific.
Yeah.
I don't even need my glasses. Very durable. But tell me, first of all, start with what it's about. What's the core story of this, and where did it come from?
So the core story is basically the operations that we did against the Sinaloa cartel in the county that I worked, right? And so we had a group of cops that were assigned to counter the Sinaloa cartel, which controls the state of Arizona, especially at this time. So this was probably the 2009, 10, 11 timeframe, and a lot of smuggling activity going on. Arizona was the focal point for the U.S. when it came to illegal immigration and all those things going on with that. And so the book, the core of it is the operations we did during that time frame. But how I laid the book out is I started the book with a little bit of background on me so that they could have an understanding of who I was and why I was speaking about what I was speaking about. Then I kind of go into the cartel culture as we saw it on our side of the fence, some of the just their narco culture, the saints they prayed to, how they were structured, what their culture looked like, so that the person reading it, they have an understanding of me, they have an understanding of the culture that we're dealing with, and then we go into the operations themselves so that they have a good foundation on why things happen the way they do in these operations. So then I just go through several operations that were exciting, to say the least, and then that's it. Kind of finish it out with a glossary of terms, which a lot of people, believe it or not, have thanked me for, because I as I went through this, I understood as a government guy, first off, we make acronyms for everything, right?
Right.
And a lot of people are like, I have no idea what that means. And so I knew that, and I knew also that some of the terminology would be street slang, and some of it is just made up terms. And so I wanted to go through and make sure everybody had a good understanding at the end of anything they thought, like, what the heck did that word mean? So I gave them a good glossary at the end to finish it off, and that was it.
Is there a second book coming out?
So not on interceptors. And by the way, that book, so that took me about 3 years to write, to get everything written where I thought, okay, this is the manuscript here. And so I am not a fast writer, and I have to be in the mood to write. So I would sit down sometimes and I would bang out 2 paragraphs in a day. And then there were other times where I could barely get the word "the" out, right? I would just sit there and stare at the page and nothing would come to me. But telling you all that because I have been working on more of a leadership book, because as I went through life and the positions that I've held, I've learned a lot about leading others, and even leading family, that I'm trying to put to words, right, so for other people to use. And I know there's a lot of leadership books out there, but it's one of those subjects that people are always looking to. How can I lead better? And so that's kind of been my focus, but it's one of those things that is in the works, and I don't know how long.
That's another amazing segue, by the way, because one of the last areas I wanted to ask you about, you understand that JC has a following of people who are struggling to find meaning for themselves,
right,
struggling for direction.
right,
They're looking for leadership.
right,
They look to JC for leadership, but they look to other people. He doesn't have it all. He has a perspective. And you, as you said earlier, have a very different perspective.
right,
You're coming from a very different, it goes to the core of your faith
right,
in your belief in Jesus Christ. Got it. But to those people who are out there looking for leadership and direction, you come from a very, very different perspective. What would you tell them? I know it's a tough question to put to you.
right.
But how would you, if you can think for a moment of that homeless man you had dinner with, and think of some of the more empathetic, maybe, people you have arrested and dealt with over the years.
Right.
How do you help them? What kind of guidance and direction can you put them in?
Oh man, well, that is tough, and it's tough because everybody's looking for something different, right? Everybody has a different gap that they need filled, or a void that they need filled. But I think for me, my focus on leadership is how to create a culture that's a positive culture, where because leading others is really just influencing others. That's what you're doing, right? You're getting them to willingly do something, and it's not through manipulation. It's through belief in a cause, right? Something bigger than themselves.
They have to buy into it.
Yeah, there has to be buy-in, right? And so I think people that are looking for whatever the void is that they're trying to fill, how a leader can develop those people is you have to have an understanding of what the common goal is. And so that's why it makes it difficult, because different groups have different goals, right? I could have a group of men and their goal is to be good fathers, right? So that's one discussion. And you could have a group of women that want to be good mothers, and that's a different discussion. So yeah, it's, I know that's kind of all over the place, but it's tough to nail that down to one thing. But I think the overarching message for me anyways is how to create a culture, and a lot of that is how do you treat people, the introspect you have as a leader, because that's a huge part of it. You cannot be an arrogant person. And I would always teach my younger leaders that the higher you go up in rank and the more people that you're responsible for, the less it is about you and the more it is about others. And so the more responsibility you have, especially for other people, the less it is about you. And you have to have a true understanding of that as a leader, that you're giving up more and more of yourself, and you're accepting that. You have to be accepting of that. And you also have to understand that you are a dealer of hope. So you have to lose the negativity if you're a leader, and you have to focus on the positive. So much so that there's times where I'm having a sucky day, right? But my people can't know that I'm having a sucky day because I bring the weather for that day. So if I walk in and I'm in a stormy mood, then I can set the whole place into that mood without even realizing it. And so I have to have a good understanding of the effect that I bring as a leader when I walk into the building. And there's times where I have to shake off my foul mood before I get out of my car and walk into the office, because I want to have a positive effect on everybody and not a negative effect.
I'm not going to ask you how many times you didn't walk in because of that. Matt, I want to thank you.
Absolutely.
For those of you, this is Matt Thomas, author of Interceptors and a terrific law enforcement professional
Thank you.
with faith.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, guy.
Thank you.